Welcome back to another episode of Psychonaut Sessions. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to do sort of a review of Clive Barker's book CABAL, but also a review of his movie NIGHTBREED. So CABAL and NIGHTBREED are actually the same story. NIGHTBREED is the film version, CABAL is the novel version of the story. I'm a huge fan of Clive Barker. I really loved him in high school and especially college. His works in some ways have been repeatable to me over the years. I read them a lot in my 20s and 30s. Most recently, I've tried to kind of revisit some of his stuff just to see if it still takes in my mid 40s. And I thought it would be fun to read Cabal because it's one that I've actually never read before, and then watch the movie NIGHTBREED. So Cabal came out in 1988, and it's about a group of monsters that live in this place called Midian. Um, they are kind of the monsters of old, the creatures of lore and legend that have had to live underground over the years to escape from humanity's brutality. And the main character, Aaron Boone, is a character who becomes Nightbreed. And I'll get into the story in just a little bit more detail. Nightbreed is a 1990 film that was written and directed by Barker. So Barker had a lot of success with Hellraiser. He wrote the novel or novella, and then wrote and directed the movie Hellraiser, and it was huge. So the studios basically were giving him carte blanche access. I would say even before Hellraiser, Nightbreed, the movie, was my introduction to Clive Barker as a young person. A buddy of mine and I think we found it on like Showtime or Cinemax or HBO or something late night, and it blew our minds away. After that, I wanted everything Clive Barker. It's by Morgan Creek Entertainment. They basically, the whole goal is that with the success of Hellraiser, they wanted to make the Star Wars of horror films. So they were originally planning this as a trilogy, springboarding off of Cabal, 1988's Cabal, which is a novella in and of itself. Hellraiser was like a $2 million budget, and Morgan Creek gave Barker $11 million and pretty much just do what you can do. So you can find out there a director's cut, what's called the Cabal cut, or even just the original theatric version. I recommend the director's cut, especially. So here's the story. Aaron Boone is a guy who is haunted by visions of a place called Midian. He's just a loner outcast. He does have a girlfriend, but he's crazy, mentally ill. He's been seeing a psychologist named Decker, and he has a girlfriend named Lori. They have a very strong bond. Decker, I mean, spoiler alert. So there's going to be spoilers in this. If you haven't seen it yet, then go see it. But Decker is a psychologist who is trying to guide Boone, but you find out pretty quickly actually he's sort of manipulating him. Convinces Boone that he's actually a serial killer. Links him to a bunch of crimes that have been happening, of families being brutally murdered. And through all of this, Boone kind of even goes more nuts. Goes to Midian, or tries to look for Midian. Finds the town or place where he feels like Midian exists. Gets killed by the police through Decker's guidance of hunting him down. And he resurrects. He essentially is in a hospital and meets a person named Narcisse, who is the one who guided him to Midian, and blah 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 blah. He eventually finds these groups of monsters that live in a necropolis, or underneath a necropolis, underneath a giant graveyard, and called the NIGHTBREED, and joins them. So it's a really cool story. It's fun. In my recent reread of CABAL and then watching the movie, both are a lot of fun. However, as I read the book, and granted, remember, I watched the movie long before I ever read the book. I only recently just read the novella. It is almost beat for beat the movie. Um, it it matches the movie perfectly, from every plot point, including the adventures that Laurie goes on to find Aaron Boone, to find Boone. The exchanges that her and Decker have, where Decker's trying to hunt her down after he thinks Boone is dead, and even the individual Nightbreed themselves. Now, there are changes, so I'll go through those changes here in a second. Overall, this is one of those rare cases where I actually think that I like the movie better than the book. Now, the movie is it's 1990, so, Boone's got a mullet. It's very late 80s, early 90s. It's got that style. And truly, that's actually Barker's bread and butter, is that era of cinema and pop culture. That's where Barker lives. In reading some of Barker's other works that came later, I don't think he was ever able to really. It was like he was in a certain zeitgeist during that period of time. One interesting note about Nightbreed the movie is the music was done by Danny Elfman, so the score is wonderful. Again, Barker both directed and wrote it, so he just used his book, pretty much beat for beat. And so let's kind of go into the differences. First and foremost, Boone. So Boone essentially is this character who becomes one of the Nightbreed, and eventually, spoiler alert, ends up causing the destruction of Midian in the end. He is CABAL. Um, he is something that was prophesized to come and would be the catalyst that would cause Midian to fall. Essentially being their Ragnarok or apocalypse, and starting a new age of monsters, of this reign of monsters on the earth. So, even though Barker was really only did this one novella for the movies, this novella was meant to be like movie one, and so hopefully, supposedly, they were going to do movies 2 and 3. It didn't end up that way. Boone is actually a stronger presence in the movie than in the book. In the book, I would say Laurie, his girlfriend, takes a stronger presence. That is one thing I really do like about the book, over the movie. To have that kind of Star Wars thing, you need that lead character, that Luke Skywalker kind of character, and that's what Boone was really meant to be, played by Craig Schaefer. Craig did a really good job. Again, he's from a very specific time in cinema. He did fine. In the book, his Nightbreed visage is actually way more animalistic. In the movie, this is another complaint I do have about the movie. They just kind of, when he turned into his monster Nightbreed visage, it just, I don't know. They just added a little bit of makeup to make him look mean or whatever. But in the book, it's more like he almost turns into some sort of, like, almost werewolf, weird kind of creature. But overall, the character beats are pretty much the same. And like I said, Craig Schaefer did a really good job. Laurie Winston was played by Ann Bobby. I don't really remember what else she was in, but I think I do remember seeing her in a couple other things in the movie. Like I said, way stronger presence in the book, which I did like. But I think Anne Bobby still had a strong pronouncement of her of who she was in the movie, which I do appreciate. Their love making in the book is way more central, and it's very graphic. So if you know anything about Clive Barker, his the eroticism in his books is very pronounced. And in fact, in the book, it's their lovemaking that actually pulls Boone out of despair, and helps him embrace being this kind of like a mastery over his Nightbreed self. And you do definitely get a very strong sense of like the destiny of the two of them being together, which is actually just a very common thread in almost every Clive Barker book. So it's not anything original, but it's not, you don't really feel that kind of erotic, strong bond in the film as you do in the book. Decker, the psychologist Decker, played by director David Cronenberg, which is really fun and interesting. So Decker ends up being the real monster all along. Big spoiler. He is the one who was actually the serial killer and framed Boone, and then in seeing that Boone has come back alive, is obsessed and wants to take out Boone and the rest of Midian, because he's a psychotic serial killer. So he's not only the only real monster. All the cops in the town of Sherneck, which is close by Midian, are the monsters as well. It's a monster movie where the monsters are more of the victim, and humanity, of course, are the real evil. And you get to really see their ugly side. The cops, especially in the movie, it's pretty funny because it gets really hillbilly and actually kind of kooky. So it's kind of fun. In the book, he wears this mask, and really, when he wears this mask in the movie, it is probably one of the more terrifying, like, slasher serial killer masks in film of all time. It is completely horrifying. And David Cronenberg does a really good job, but yeah, it is just jarring. In the book, the mask talks to him, so that's pretty cool. I appreciate that. I like that a lot. It didn't add a ton, and so it was cool, just as cool in the movie as it was in the book. So those are the three primary characters, and then you get a lot of the characters of Midian. So Narcisse, played by Hugh Gross, was really cool. He's about the same in the book as he was in the movie. Kind of becomes Boone's buddy. A lot of fun. Actually adds in both the book and movie, adds kind of a comedic fun element. So with all these dark themes, just some cheeky humor and stuff to keep things light. Lylesburg, in the movie, played by Doug Bradley. Lylesburg is kind of an old man mainstay. In the movie, they make it seem more like he's a sort of Yoda kind of character who's like the leader. You don't really get the sense that there's a leader in the book. And Lylesburg is also just kind of this weird, shadowy smoke stuff. He doesn't really have a form. He'll kind of form into a shape of a person, but it's way different than in the movie than it is in the book. I'm not sure which version I prefer. And in fact, Lylesburg is way less consequential in the book than he is in the movie. In the movie, he seems more like a carrier. He carries out the laws of Midian and stuff. Peliquin. So Peliquin is actually the Nightbreed individual who creates Boone. So he bites Boone when Boone visits the cemetery looking for Midian. So in a sense, Peliquin is sort of the father or mother, you know, of Boone as a Nightbreed, played by Oliver Parker in the movie. Very interesting monster makeup and stuff. Really cool. A lot of fun. In the book, he's more lizard-like. He's more like a lizard who's walking on all fours, which probably would have been way harder to do. So I understand the changes that they made for the movie, and in fact, I quite like it. I think it's pretty cool. I like the way he looked, and he looks very vicious. I remember watching it as a kid and just terrified of that guy. Kinski in the movie is played by Nicholas Vince, Peliquin's buddy that who he's with in the graveyard when Boone comes in. In the book, the name is actually Jackie. And very different monster visage appearances. In the movie, he's got sort of like a crescent moon head kind of shape to his head, kind of like the McDonald's Mac at Night guy. In the book, as Jackie, the appearance is more like two faces that are like merged into one. So kind of like a circus freak sort of thing. But still sticks, to character as in the book. They're very, very much the same character. And then you have Rachel and Babette. Rachel being the mother of Babette. Pretty much spot on from the book as to the movie. Babette is as well, except in the book there's a little bit more involvement with Babette, who you get this whole storyline tear where Babette actually forms a psychic bond with Laurie, and they can see through each other's eyes and feel each other's feelings, which was kind of cool. So I'm going to get to a couple things now, that because it seems like I've been very much more critical of the movie than of the book. But those positive things that I've talked about in the book so far, that's kind of where it ends. The movie, in watching the movie, I was hoping that the book would have much more to say about the lore, the history and mystique of the Nightbreed, where they came from, how they've lived over centuries. In the movie, they reference these laws, and they seem to have these ritualized ways of doing things, and I was hoping that that would be further explored. None of that is touched on. And in fact, one thing I really enjoyed about the movie, especially in the director's cut, there's a whole scene where the monsters you just get to walk through the canals of the underground. You get to see what it's like and experience some of the monsters there, and just them living in their daily lives as Laurie's walking through. And it's very creative. It's just everything you want to see in cinema in something like this regard. You feel like you're there. There's just a lot of really fun, innovative monsters and experiences. And in the book, that's not really explained. So that's the thing about the book that I'm a little disappointed in. I've always been a fan of Barker's prose, but one thing I have noticed in my rereads is he's actually quite ambiguous about his descriptions. He's not very descriptive. He leaves so much to the imagination that sometimes it's left to be desired. Sometimes I'm like, I actually want a little more from you. I want to know how you kind of see this too. I do appreciate putting us in the driver's seat, but after seeing all of this on screen, I wanted more. So a really great example of that, I'll read here, is regarding Baphomet. So Baphomet is actually the true leader of Midian, and is really essentially the kind of the god of Baphomet, or like the prime deity. And in the movie, played by Bernard Henry, it is weird. it is so unique. It is unlike anything I ever saw in cinema at the time, and really, I don't think I've seen a whole lot like it since. And I was really hoping for more about Baphomet in this and what it looked like and who it was. And really, all Baphomet is described as is, so Laurie's looking at it and it's just basically a pillar of fire. Or Boone, I'm sorry. It's just a pillar of fire and it's like a body inside of the fire. I know, yeah, Boone and Laurie are here. And it's referred to, Baphomet's referred to as Midian's creator. And here's like the main paragraph to describe it. This was Baphomet, this diced and divided thing. Seeing its face, she screamed. No story or movie screen, no desolation, no bliss had prepared her for the making of Midian. Sacred it must be, as anything so extreme must be sacred. A thing beyond things, beyond love or hatred or their sum, beyond the beautiful or the monstrous or their sum, beyond finally her mind's power to comprehend or catalogue. In the instant she looked away from it, she had already blanked every fraction of the sight from conscious memory and locked it where no torment or entreaty would ever make her look again. And that's it. That's literally the only description you get of Baphomet and their experience of Baphomet in the book. And in the movie, it's very prominent. Boone receives a vision from Baphomet. It's very clear that he receives a vision, and that Baphomet imparts that onto Boone as, you are CABAL, you are now the destruction of Midian. And, essentially it's about Midian's destruction causing, spurning a new era for them that would hopefully have trickled out into the sequels, which never happened. So huge disappointment in that. I remember just getting through CABAL and was like, man, it's just so much left to be desired in that regard. So that's what made me a little bit more disappointed in the book than the movie, because at least you get all these like fun, imaginative creatures and the world of Midian, and you just don't get all of that. You don't get like what was like being down there in the tunnels underground. One other thing that was not in the book that was in the movie was the berserkers, the crazy wild monsters that were like unhinged, that they unleashed to the authorities of Sharonak. Not in the book at all. So that was another fun, interesting cinematic element in the movie that was enjoyable. Other than that, there were, again, a lot of the similar beats. I didn't really feel like in reading the book that I got anything different than the movie, other than a few little tidbits of just like Laurie having a little bit more prominence. But other than that, that was basically it. I really highly recommend NIGHTBREED. I really highly recommend CABAL and any of Clive Barker's works. They are a lot of fun. But I would just say, at the end of the day, I would stick with the movie. I probably won't reread the book again. So, yeah. And I'm actually thinking about doing another review of his book, the story that he did of The Last Illusion, and then he did the movie Lord of Illusions, which is actually another one of my favorite. I love Lord of Illusions, especially the director's cut. So I'm looking forward to rereading that story and then comparing it to the movie with Scott Bakula in it. So that's my review of CABAL and NIGHTBREED. Hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you would, subscribe to my Patreon. You'll get exclusive content and early screenings for Psychonaut Sessions. I also have books and comics out there you can get on my website. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for more notifications. Everybody stay safe out there and keep it psycho.